This is Chipicon, and this is the Changing Times, Changing Worlds Wednesday show. Due to a computer glitch, I had a, I didn't get the ad up early, so we may not have as many people discussing as would benefit this particular show. What I was hoping for tonight is a discussion about what happens after you die, which should be a fascinating thing. Certainly there is no agreement on what happens after you die. I think most of us who are involved in Changing Times, Changing Worlds assume that something happens after you die other than your body ceases to work. Things do. You get older, your things stop working. But it would be a sad thing to it just be confusing to me. To me, the idea that there is so many ghosts, there are so many mediums, there are so many people who remember past lives. There seems to be so much evidence that we do persist after our bodies die. There are people who experience something in near-death experiences. So we would like to. It seems inappropriate, and to me, reincarnation makes sense because the universe tends to recycle everything. So why would it not recycle souls? Yeah, we're just going to keep using bits and pieces and reuse them perhaps in different ways. So reincarnation makes sense to me, but perhaps not at the same way that it does to other people. For example, I think most modern Westerners consider the reincarnation to be an Eastern philosophy or Eastern theory. We are it's certainly very common in Hindu belief, but what is that? What Westerners have circulated a lot is the concept of transmigration of souls, which basically means after you die, you go into a different body. And the somewhat, in my opinion, flawed concept of karma, which is, well, if you were naughty in this life, then in the next life you go into a body that will, which is less worthy in some way. I don't think that reincarnation works that way at all. I don't think that we are in any way. Oh, hello, Henry. That I don't think that you're punished or rewarded through reincarnation any more than you are punished or rewarded. Well, I suppose, yes, the Christian philosophy is that you get punished or rewarded in your afterlife depending on how you behaved. Shall we we do that, but if you are the idea that you're being punished or rewarded just doesn't make sense to me. There are the idea of using the afterlife as some kind of a disciplinary tool to get you to behave and while you're alive gets on my nerves. I don't wish to in any way speak disparagingly of other people's beliefs. So I should probably mention things, but not put judgment on them. But to me, it's like life is a place you can learn things. There are many examples of religions that suggest that things that don't have bodies really like to have bodies, and because it's just a great way of experiencing the physical world, that the sensations that we have with bodies are a great joy to things that ordinarily don't have bodies. Now, if you talk to mediums, most mediums say that when you die, you go into a place of great bliss where everything, you don't have bodies, but you can see, you can communicate with other spirits, and it's all wonderful and peaceful and loving, and you're just surrounded with love. Well, that sounds pretty good. But somehow, whether you are a Loa in the Santeria tradition, or whether you are an angel in the traditional Christian, they seem to like to borrow bodies, so that, because the ability to eat and drink and smoke and have sex and dance and, I don't know, enjoy a sunset is something that those without bodies seem to like. People, ghosts, and people who have died, and I'm using the term people basically as a consciousness, tend to like to get into a body if it is being loosely held. The people that I have known who've had problems with possession, obsession, being ridden, usually is because they're very unhappy with their bodies and weren't keeping the door shut. And then something that really wanted to would get in there and run the body, and frequently participate in behavior that they weren't very happy about afterwards. So I will say that it is what we want to, being incarnated in a body, having a body to wear around is a good thing. Is it the only one? Do we only have one life? We probably have only one life that we can remember at a certain time. The Greeks had the concept of the river Lethe, which you drank up when you died, and then you would forget your life. And that made your afterlife a lot easier to deal with, because you weren't constantly worrying about it. And if you think about, supposing you were Napoleon and you remembered your past life, you would probably be obsessing about how could I have won at Waterloo. So much better to forget your past lives and concentrate on the one you're dealing with right now. What many mediums want to deal with, and what many people who have had past life experiences, now I should probably talk a little bit about past life experiences in case, and near-death experiences. Near-death experiences are something that started being talked about in the 70s, I think. Raymond Moody was one of the leaders in that studies. He wrote the book Life After Life, and he talked about, he examined a lot of near-death experiences and what they had in common. And one of the things they had in common is when they came back from your near-death experience, you just were absolutely certain that your soul went on and what was coming next would be good. But most of the people who came back because they were offered the option, okay, your body is in serious trouble now. Do you want to go back or do you want to stay? And they said, well, you have children and they would benefit from you being there. So, okay, I will, even though it's wonderful here, I'm going to go back and be with my help raise my children. And that's the kind of thing, the experience that a lot of people who've had near-death experiences have, and then they can report to doctors and other people around them what they saw while they were technically dead. It's called near death because they did live afterwards. So, but while they were technically not breathing and not responding, they would frequently observe what was going on in the room where somebody was trying to revive them, and they would be able to see things that theoretically they couldn't have seen or experienced from that position. But they would always come back absolutely certain. Yes, I exist aside from my body. That's very cool, and it gives you a whole lot more. Gives you more confidence in being able to go forward. One of the things that people worry about is whether you're going to heaven or whether you're going to have your next lifetime tends to be one that you are going to be learning. Think of it, or I think of it, as school. You're here to learn something. You're here to do something, accomplish something. You're here to experience something. Often, I think we are here to work on our relationships with other souls. And one of the things that I frequently point out is I think we, just because you're dead doesn't mean you're any smarter than you are. People say, how can horrible things happen? How can a baby be born with cancer? It's like, well, how about if you're trying to decide where you're going to incarnate another time, and you say, John and Mary, as symbolic names, are married, and so I can be their kid, and I can grow up with them, and that will be great. But they said, great, I'm going to go and incarnate there, and then don't check to discover that John and Mary are living in the 80s at Love Canal. And so, yeah, well, that gives you a whole pile of problems that you have to deal with that you hadn't necessarily signed up for. You may very well have signed up for, I abused somebody in the past life. I am going to be abused and try and learn from that and see what it was like for them. I have a friend who they apparently both experienced the not premonition, the sense that they had known each other in a previous lifetime, and she was convinced that she had been killed by her now husband. He was a cavalry officer and she was a Native American, and they got together to live their lives, and so he does his very best to take care of her because he's making up for when he was bad to her. Well, is that true? I don't know. I hope they're getting along, aside from that very interesting story about possible past lives. It's a lot more important how you're living your life now. But having a body certainly allows you to have experiences and interact with other people. If you're having problems, and I think most of the people that we are born into or have really close relationships to, we have the possibility, the likelihood that we push each other's buttons. In the Seth material, Jane Roberts wrote books, 60s, 70s. And she talked about, I liked the book, The Education of Oversoul 7, and they talked about how they would get to know each other in other and interact, but a lot of the souls there were different pieces of the same soul. They which is why they were driving each other crazy when they encountered each other in this lifetime. I kind of like that. My personal view is I see our souls as constantly growing, constantly learning. The more you learn, when you get to be a certain size, so you could be the same soul. I don't believe in reincarnation. I believe in multiple incarnations. I do not believe that it is sequential. I don't think time exists outside of the world. the physical world that we live in. I think that's a way of organizing the physical world. So if time doesn't exist in the same way, and I can speak from personal experience that time does not appear to exist. You can send magic forward and you can send it back in time, and you can change, yes, you can change the past, which is hard because we have this agreement with everybody else who's incarnated that time exists. And so if you stop looking at that, if you act like time doesn't exist, and to me, time only doesn't exist on the other side. So while you're here, it certainly still does. But so I don't see any reason why you can't reincarnate in ancient Rome, and then in the 25th century, and then come back and be and do the Middle Ages, and then, for goodness sakes, let's just say that human beings have been around, what, 200,000 years? I don't know. It's since there were modern human beings, it's been a very long time, and history is only recorded as going back about 5,000 years. So for those other 200,000, there were people. Now, maybe they were nomadic. Maybe they were little villages. Maybe they were cavemen. But they certainly had souls and spirits, just like we do. We can see the cave paintings. They had shamans, and a shaman is simply a spirit worker. They had spirits. They worked with them. So there's a whole lot of human history, and there's a whole lot of human prehistory that we probably participated in at some point. But so I don't believe in sequential incarnation, except in the case of apparently the Dalai Lama, who reincarnates immediately after his old body dies, so that they can go and look for somebody who was born at that time, and that allows them to find his next incarnation. There's a lot of stories from India of people who died and were born immediately after they decided to, after they died, they get born almost immediately in another body, and frequently not very far away. If you do that, I have a feeling it's because you're being cautious. You're sticking with what you know. Some people talk about, okay, if you're a male is a better body to work in. Well, male gives you more ability in many cultures for initiative than being a female does. I dare say there are people out there who say that a female is a more advanced soul than a male. I think that that's silly. I don't think that you reincarnate in the same gender. I don't think you necessarily reincarnate in the same race. I think that the more adventurous you are, the more likely you are to jump into a different situation. I think that if you're going to be going into a very similar type life, then chances are you're still trying to master the lessons of whatever that type of life is going to give you. Certainly a lot of groups like Theosophists believe that life is for learning things. Let me just check and see if anybody is saying anything on Facebook. Okay, I so agree, says. So yeah, it would be really nice if people would make comments, because I am not, apparently it's been hard for people to get onto the Zoom tonight. And so those people who are watching on Facebook, if you leave comments in the comment thing, I can answer them. Now, one of the things that we like the idea of being able to talk to dead people. That's what mediumship is. Is the ability to perceive and interact with ghosts. And that's a cool thing. I know several mediums. I am not one. I have worked with mediums because I had an experience with there was a spirit or ghost that was bugging co-student of mine when I was in college, and a medium was able to talk to. Basically, I told it to, excuse me, not your body. You have to get out. It's like, I'm the devil, says the spirit, according to the medium. And I said, no, you're not. And it's like, okay, well, I'm a big demon. It's like, no, you're not. And it's like, well, I'm a ghost and I'm powerful. And I said, yes, well, you should have gone on to the afterlife when you were when you died, and you got confused. Think about it. Think how traumatizing it is for any human being to be shunned. If you suddenly are back where your body dies and then you're living, but nobody is seeing you, nobody is talking to you, it's really very close to shunning, and no wonder they go nuts. And then when they gradually begin to understand that they can't pop into an unguarded body, or to be able to do a to affect things like knocking pictures off walls and making lights flicker and the other things ghosts are fond of doing. You try and do those things just to create a level of discussion, of interaction, and so yeah, basically I bullied the poor fellow into passing on to the other world. But apparently, according to many modern mediums, the beloved dead can tune in from wherever they are in the afterlife, and I'm getting a note from Henry that says that the link was different, and it recently released Disney film Soul has an interesting concept of death and pre-life. Always curious to hear about those, like the Buddhists and Egyptians have a soul that has parts. Indeed, we should talk about souls and parts. This is one of the things that people want to know about. People are constantly, well, what is it that is the immortal part of us? What is the part of us that is not physical? Because I think once you have this accumulation of memories of past lives and ghosts and things, you just, okay, so what is this thing that persists? And occultists, spiritual students tend to look at the let's see, heathen concepts. Are they incarnating parts are pieces we have in life only. Oh, well, there's just so much cool thing about heathen thought. There are stories that have come down to us about people in the northern cultures who talk about having been buried. They said, that's where my body was buried when I was king so-and-so, and pointing out that. So they did believe in reincarnation. The heathens do have a lot of different bits and pieces of souls. That you have the philia, and you have the fetch, and you have the lich, and lich is your body, your physical body. You have a bit of your soul which is shared with your entire bloodline. The whole thing in China about ancestor worship and why it's important to have a son which is why they have, when they went down to single in China, they went to you're only allowed one child. and so they would have sons in preference to daughters, was because only the sons can perform the rites that keep the ancestors' spirits healthy and available to the ongoing family. That seems to be that it's not that they are more worthy, it was just they're specified that the only the males can do these rites, and they needed that because without those rites, all the family spirits going way back just kind of wither and die and, you know, become unalive in a way that they are. Is this true? I'm not entirely certain that what it's not doing is simply maintaining a connection to the modern family. The world doesn't seem to have a lot of, there's no consensus on what happens. Certainly there would be a lot more ghosts around if they were permanent. And so the fact that a spirit can stay on this plane before it moves on to the next plane, there is, you know, the Christians, and that in the modern American way of looking at things, Christians and the idea of heaven is very big. It's probably the majority of Americans think in terms of heaven. There was a very cute book called Heaven's for Real, written by a little kid, Todd Burpo, who talks about how things were in heaven and how he went and talked to Jesus and what everything is like in heaven. It's an adorable book, and very reassuring, but very Christian. And everybody's like, well, how would he know all these things when he was little? I think he was 4 or 5. And nobody had told him this stuff yet. So how would he know? Because it's all consistent with Christian theology, except that, of course, I keep thinking of the movie Ghostbusters, where I said it could be past lives intruding on current consciousness, or it could be telepathy, or it could be, well, I don't believe in any of those things. There's no reason in the world the kid couldn't have gotten it from telepathically. But a lot of people have taken this as proof that, yes, heaven is real. And if a little child who has no reason to try and fool anybody or to no training could very well, why would he lie? Let's see. Deb says, I have received messages from my deceased mom and dad through mediums that are personal and accurate. Yes, mediums are quite good at getting clear messages. They're also, sadly, because it is so important, especially if you have unfinished business with your relatives, it is too easy for frauds to come in. Anytime they're making anything more than it's just paying them for their time and the effort they're putting in, you become more suspicious than if they're just simply asking the living wage. Is there increasing awareness of spirits or ancestors of group? In the 80s, there was no mention of it. Most of my knowledge and experience is from Roman Catholic background, which includes saints and the dead. Yeah, basically, apparently, there are plenty of reason to believe that the dead still pay attention to us. I really enjoyed the TV show Medium, where the poor woman had to deal with her father-in-law coming in. It's like, don't come into the bathroom when I'm taking a bath. I especially liked in Medium that she only got fragmentary messages, and interpreting them was not something that was very useful to her. Interpreting them was a difficulty. Charming show. I loved her scientifically minded husband and all the problems that came along with her kids as they developed psychic abilities. It's like, no, this is not an easy way to live. But But I think we can confidently say that, yes, the dead seem to be watching us. The dead, I would say, the dead are not necessarily, if they loved you while they were alive, the chances are they will be loving to you now and want to help you. If the dead were not very bright, if they were pretty nasty, they're probably going to continue to be nasty. They're probably going to continue to to be the same people they were. We get a chance to learn things and to grow and to make our to deal with each other. Oh, we have, okay. Do you have anything that you would want to throw in? I'm monologuing here, which is, I much prefer dialogue. So no, you're not muted, I
I
don't
got
think.
here late. I'm sorry.
Hey, better late than never. It's a strange discussion. My personal belief is that as we experience things, our souls get bigger, and that at some point, like an amoeba, you get to a certain size, and then it splits, and then each of those bits of soul go off and do their own thing the way any other soul does. And anytime a soul gets huge, it breaks up into smaller pieces, it splits like an amoeba. And so we all have the experiences from before, but when you are now in two pieces, you have different experiences. So interacting with that other part of your soul, you're probably going to, that's my theory anyway. Take it out or toss it as you see fit. But I'm trying to think of other things. I think it's important, what Henry is thinking about the heathen stuff, and one of the big things for heathens is the family spirit, and there are many subcultures and tribes that say that we share a spirit among those we're related to, among our tribe, among our family, among our clan, and that spirit watches us and takes care of it. And what one of us does reflects well or badly on the luck, on the shall we say karmic burden of everyone else in that group. That is a aspect of heathenry which leads to heathens caring a lot about honor, and about, because everything you do reflects on all the people to whom you are attached. Heathens have a concept of the web of weird, the strands connecting us, like the Huna have the Ika strands that connect us, and the there's many cultures that talk about how we are connected, and the energy flows through those things. And we have to be aware of how we are a part of each other, how we are connected to each other. And those connections are part of what I think allow us to continue to interact with the dead once they're dead. When they're dead and we're alive, we're on other sides of the of life and death. Raymond Mooney's book, he writes about, he created something called a psychomantium based on, that's what Greeks had as a way of getting in touch with the dead. And so he kind of pared that experience down. They had a lot, you'd spend a month in the temple, and you would eat the right kinds of foods, and you would sing the right kinds of songs and do the right kinds of things. Then you get to talk to your beloved dead. Raymond Moody's is really pared down with that. You spend a day with him, and then you talking about the dead person you're hoping to talk to, and then he puts you in this room which is dark with a mirror with a single bulb, that is not on the mirror, so that you're basically looking into, we would think of it as a scrying mirror. And then usually the dead person, he's got about, he says, a 90% success rate of people getting to talk to the person they wanted to talk to. It's just 80%, and then it goes up to 90% if you count the week afterwards, because sometimes people say, no, it never happened. And then they go back to their hotel room and the person appears to them there. and these, sometimes they experience, they say that they stepped out of the mirror, or the person stepped into the mirror, and that they're just as solid and just as real as if they were there physically, which is a very cool thing. So I suggest you can look up Raymond Moody's work, because it's really cool, and don't we all want to? I think he's working in the last book I read, trying to set these up around the world so that other people can help find peace when you've got difficulties between you and a lost relative, that you never got it. The lack of closure when somebody dies is hard, and that's why people do want to talk to their dead relatives, and why people are always, well, what if there's nothing there? A friend of mine recently died, and I'm dealing with, I accepted being executrix of the estate. I had no idea what I was getting into, but he was not particularly spiritual. And I have a feeling that he is now waking up dead and saying, whoa, okay, that's not what I expected. Oh my goodness, there's a great story, I think in the Seth Material, or one of Jane Roberts' books, about a man who was dead, and he was terribly worried, but his Oversoul was concerned about, he didn't know whether he should be going, he had converted, I don't know whether it was Christianity to Islam or Islam to Christianity, but in the Middle Ages, either of those was very difficult emotionally. And he was a little bit worried about whether he was going to hell or not. So the Oversoul staged a wonderful battle in front of him, created images of Jesus and Muhammad having a big fight over his soul to see who would get his soul. And then one of them did, and then he was able, once there was a clear winner, he was willing to go to whichever heaven. I don't remember whether it was Muhammad or Jesus who got him, but he was then emotionally capable of, he was conflicted. He didn't, I mean, you can see that there's really good things in Christianity, there's really good things in Islam, and how somebody would have a hard time picking which one to be part of. But afterwards, just like, oh, did I pick wrong? Well, there should not be a wrong. People should be able to experience spirituality as it works for them. But when you wake up dead, if you're expecting to be in hell, I think you're going to experience hell. And if you were a medieval person, you're going to be plunged into a fiery furnace with demons sticking you with prongs, until at some point you'll say, well, shoot, I wasn't that bad. And at which point the friendly spirits who are going to come and say, why don't you come to this place, which Wiccan friends call it the Summerland, Christians call it heaven, whatever, where you get all this peace and love and joy and simple connection that that they say you experience. They talk about a tunnel of light, which is basically an increasing awareness of this beautiful place, which is all positive and light. Is that I don't think it's physical, because it's not on the physical plane. Physical is here. Physical is the stuff we have created. It is the brilliant place that our consciousnesses have created a reality that allows us to do all the things that we do. from having babies to exploring to living lives to thinking deep thoughts. But what is the important things that we're doing? Who knows? Be nice to each other. But I think we do have to interact with each other. I can't really imagine being alone in the universe. I suppose if you are really, really enlightened and you can become one with everything, it might not be lonely. But I am not an advanced soul. I am just here doing this stuff. Fascinated student of the universe and reading everything I can get my little fingers on, set my eyes on, which is why I read everything from the Seth material to Raymond Moody to, and talk, in the world that has collected all of these people for changing times, changing world. Some of us are not afraid of asking these questions of what is our place in the universe, and what are we doing here? I really, really would very much like to have other people talking. Has anybody got any questions or thoughts? I do think there are many aspects or parts of our souls that seems to be something that many, many cultures have. Oh, a patron saint. I think that saints are spirits who have incarnated and are spending all of their lifetimes, afterlife time, interacting with the people who are incarnated. It allows them to access the abilities that one has when one is discarnate, and maybe, nudge how the universe is working. Or perhaps they're only nudging us because we have all of these amazing abilities that most of us don't use. And so maybe your guardian spirits, your totem, your saint, your ancestor, whoever's, is simply giving you a subconscious poke so that you can then make your life better. That you can do the things that you just don't think that you can do. One of the things I think is kind of important is the concept of the river of forgetfulness. I think it's really important that we don't dwell on what we may or may not have been. I think that the reason that there are so many people out there who say, "Oh, I can remember being an Egyptian queens. I was Cleopatra," and you got 2 million Cleopatras out there. Well, my theory about splitting souls, okay, Cleopatra may have split into lots, and there may be a lot of people who have Cleopatra in their string of lives. More likely, modern Americans are really shite when it comes to history. And if you have dreams or other impressions that tell you that you were a woman of somewhat leisure in Egypt, that's the only name you've got. And so you say, I must have been Cleopatra. It was like, there's 5,000 years of Egyptian history, and there were a lot of Egyptian women. And but does it matter? You probably couldn't pronounce her name anyway, if you're a modern American. And so we have bits and pieces. The comment about the Disney film Soul, which apparently I have to go out and see at some point. There's also the Inside Out one, where we had different, admittedly, Inside Out is talking about the different aspects of your personality. But yeah, we probably have bits and pieces of souls that work with each other. Certainly when you're not wearing your body, it makes it easier for the discarnate to interact with you. I had some wonderful discussions and experiences with my grandmother after she died. She came back to me in dreams. It's a lot easier for the dead to appear to us in dreams. And then, of course, most people will dismiss that and say it was only a dream. There's something that feels different. I say this from my personal experience, and everybody I know who has experienced a friend or relative coming back in their dreams, it feels different. It's not the same experience. You know the difference between watching a movie about it being, it being winter and being in the winter. It feels differently. So if you think that a dead person is coming to talk to you, they probably are. If you think you see a ghost or feel a ghost or smell a ghost, or if somebody is sending you a message, chances are very good, and that's what's happening. And the important part is, look at the two ways of looking at it. If it's real and you're treating it as real, will this enhance your life? If it's real and you're treating it as it isn't real, are you going to lose something by it? Okay, well, what if it isn't real and you're treating it as real? Well, okay, maybe your friends will say you're a nut. But are you harmed by it, by proceeding as if it was real? I don't think so. So go with whatever is going to benefit your life more. Okay, would you say that the afterlife, whatever that may be, is different, or is its own, thus so few experience it until we die? Different plane. I think that it is a different plane. I think we exist, and then when our body wears out, as our cars and our computers and everything else in this planet wears out, so at some point your body is just not working anymore, and so your soul goes someplace else. You apparently have the ability to go where a bunch of other souls are and interact with them. That's a cool thing. You apparently have the ability to observe the people that you know as their lives progress. I'm a little more confused about that, because it seems to me that if I'm going off and getting another body, now maybe people don't necessarily immediately incarnate someplace else to do something else. But yeah, I think it's a different place. Is it a different world? Is it a different dimension? I'm going to refer back to other shows when I've been talking about, say, fairies. When people talked about fairies frequently, fairies, like the dead, lived inside hills. And sometimes fairies said that they were now a part of the fairy court, but they had been alive in a nearby village, which leads one to believe that one could pass from being a human being, become essentially a ghost, and join the fairy court. The implications of this are large and confusing. But it may be that fairies simply are a group of entities that have consciousness, who live on a different plane of existence. Now, because of my modern way of looking at the world, I tend to think of these planes as being on different wavelengths, so that it's not so much a thinning of the veil but a fluctuation of the frequency. And when our frequencies of our plane comes in to sync with the frequencies of the fairy plane, they can cross over and interact better. Take that for what it is. It is simply my theory. But in literature, there is a discussion of the ability to join this society of entities who seem to have perfectly reasonable lives, who appear from all the literature to have another world that they are living in, that has food and drink and dancing and activities and courts and interactions. So maybe rather than going to heaven, maybe you can simply start functioning on a different frequency and interact with those other beings. And if they have had lots and lots of, if they've had, you know, hundreds of years of interacting as a fairy, then maybe they don't identify as humans or dead humans anymore. But some of the ones that talked to people and were written up said that they were. Interesting concept. Of course, no proof of any of it. So, which is where I'm going to go back to what I was saying is, does it enhance your life or does it hurt your life? If it's going to enhance your life, go with it. If it's going to hurt your life, think it over again. So if you're getting good information from a medium, if you're getting good information from a spirit, go with it. If they're leading you to doing dumb stuff, think about interacting with that person. Many people in the pagan and heathen communities interact with a lot of beings, whether they are ancestors or gods or spirits or totems or whatever. If they are good for you, then listen to them. And if they are not good for you, stop listening. I love there's so many potentially contradictory explanation. Yes, there are many, and I collect them. So I like hearing what they have in common and how they get a different perspective. Some of our perspectives come from the cultures we're living in, and some of our perspectives come from other things. One of the things when we're talking about ghosts and Greeks and vampires is that sometimes the spirits of the dead seem to get energy from, in the Greeks thought, blood, but life essence. Vampires suck off on your life essence. So what does this mean? I don't know. Please do not take anything I say as anything more than information that a person who has read widely has got. I've lost a dear pet. Do they have souls? Oh gosh, yes, obviously. Yeah, anybody who feels spirit, and I actually have encountered a couple of people that I kind of wonder if they are simply meat packages walking around with brainwaves but no spirit in them. Most souls, pets, seem to be full of soul, and they come to us to love us and nurture us. And there's no doubt in my mind that the animals we have that share our lives with us have souls. And there are many folk traditions that say animals have spirits and go to their own afterlives. I've read stories about somebody visiting a place that where they saw the spirits of dead animals, and a shaman he met there said, and we're not getting as many because the hunters are not doing the rites. When they kill an animal, they're supposed to make a thank you for your sacrifice. I'm going to use your body as well as I can, and let me give you energy for your soul to go to the animal heaven. That made me feel a little guilty for, every pig I ever ate that was raised in a factory farm. Because we know how smart pigs are, especially if you've ever raised a pig. They're bright. Are they? Yeah. So yes, good question about the pets. And now we're getting closed in. Anybody got any other, Emily, you actually made it to Zoom. Do you have any questions?
I don't have anything to say. I just thought that it was pretty interesting, the amoeba thing that you mentioned. That would make a lot of sense, that people could, a lot of people, well, one medium I know, he says that, when you're incarnate, that you aren't on that other, so therefore he can't do a reading for you. But if there was an amoeba type of thing going on, then he definitely could. And I don't understand why you couldn't exist in two places at once too. There could be, just as a number. I mean, you could be gone and reborn.
Yeah, I think we do exist in many. I think that I see no reason, especially with the number of bodies that are incarnated in the world today, that your same soul may not be, somebody in China and somebody in South America and somebody in ancient Rome and somebody in medieval Africa. Why would you always come to the same place at the same time? And why can't you be here in many bodies at once? And then maybe some of the dreams you're having are glimpses into what your soul is doing in some of your other lives. So yeah. It's a lot more efficient, and we know that nature is terrifically efficient. So, but that's about it. I'm going to say, do tell your friends about Changing Times, Changing Worlds. This year we are once again going to be virtual, because you have to do a whole lot of prep to get a hotel. And so rather than making that prep and having to interrupt it, we're just going to go with virtual again. I will continue to do Wednesday shows so that we can continue talking about all of the healing and magical and divination stuff again. Next week, I have already decided I'm going to talk about practicing. And so anybody who has any techniques that you use to get better at what we do, whether it's healing, whether it's divination, whether it's magic, that's what we're going to be talking about next week. It's like, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? No, you can't get good at anything if you don't practice. Right. So is there info on the site about the next seat? Well, I certainly hope so. I haven't looked recently. I'll get right on that. Good question. So anything else from, no, not on the Facebook page. So I'm going to stop recording now. And thank you very much for showing up, especially on such short notice. And we will be, I'll see you again next week. And where we will, I hope, is if you can get more people to come, and so we can have more of a discussion. As I said, I can talk a great deal all by myself, but I much prefer talking with people. So thank you very much, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Just stop recording. Where's the recording button? Okay, I know there's a button here somewhere. There it is.